Gehen wir in den Raum.
Jawohl, mein Kaporal.
I daren't move too much, as my uninvited guests are only separated from me by a 10mm partition.
Etwas gehört.
Ich auch.
I'm at the mercy of a careless mistake. I'm obviously at great risk. Frankly, my existence is no longer bearable.
Our story begins with an incredible discovery. In 2018, by total chance, some mysterious notebooks were found.
Memoirs of a Postman.
Nearly 2,000 pages covered with fine handwriting in pen and ink. An astonishingly well-preserved treasure, telling the story of a postal worker in Douai during the First World War.
As a humble postal and telegraph clerk, I thought I should record in my memoirs, because things should be called by their proper names, everything that I was able to hear in terms of local, regional and world news during my voluntary captivity.
The author is a complete unknown, Achille Bourgin. In 1914, he is 33 years old. He's a postal clerk living in Douai, in the north of France. His wife, Augusta, also works for the post office. The couple have a 4-year-old daughter, Yvonne. And then there's Lucette, Achille's younger sister, his mother, Louise, and finally Jean, his father, an excellent amateur photographer. Achille also has a younger brother, Albert, who is 23. They're a close-knit, well-to-do family whose life is about to be turned upside down. Amid a mixture of consternation and determination, war is declared. On one side, Germany and Austria-Hungary. On the other, the Triple Entente. France, Britain, and Russia. More than 3 million Frenchmen are mobilized. Amongst them is Albert, Achille's brother, who joins the 3rd Engineer Regiment. In Douai, in the north, Achille doesn't leave. He's been discharged due to tuberculosis, which doesn't prevent him from working at the post office.
There was feverish activity. Within just a few hours, the volume of correspondence had increased 5-fold. The staff were run off their feet. Fortunately, there was no lack of dedication. Everyone understood that this was a serious moment for France, and there was no reason to balk at the task.
On the 3rd of August, the Germans launch a brutal offensive. They attack Belgium, a neutral country. Hundreds of Belgians are massacred. More than 1 million people flee the fighting. It's a total surprise. At the end of September, the pressure goes up a notch. A few kilometers from Douai, the Germans set fire to the town of Orchy. Wild rumors circulate and are used as propaganda. The Germans are said to have cut off children's hands and women's breasts, and some French to have savagely retaliated.
At 1 o'clock, I was taking a nap when I heard people running away down the street, shouting, "The Uhlans are in the Place Saint-Jacques." I took my hat and cane and went out to see for myself what was happening in the town. In the Place d'Armes, my attention was caught by some infantrymen who seemed flustered. A machine gun had been put in position. Things definitely seemed to be going badly wrong. A young postman approached me. "Monsieur Bourgin," he said, "the post office was evacuated at 1:30. Where to?" I replied. "To Lille."
Faced with an imminent attack by the Germans, all of the post office staff have to flee the town.
I think the war will be over in a few months. I'm confident that we have the best army in the world. We should be fine, my friends.
But nothing will go as expected.
Suddenly, we heard gunfire very close by. Ye gods, what's going to become of us? A young man who'd been ahead of us a moment earlier was hit by a bullet.
In the panic, Achille and his colleagues from the post office take refuge in the nearest house. They hide in the attic.
Without having had any supper, we lay down on the floor to sleep, with only a ladder for a pillow. None of us could close our eyes. Shots rang out at every moment. During the night, at around 1:45, the 3 doorbells of the house rang. 9 men invaded the dwelling. "The Germans are here." One of the soldiers probed the walls and stabbed the mattresses with a small lance. Of course, the attic wasn't spared. Luckily, our hiding place remained undisturbed. The next day, Rue d'Escarchin was a woeful sight. The ground was littered with rifles, folding bicycles, bags, greatcoats, caps, and even trousers, some soldiers having taken the precaution of putting on civilian clothing before fleeing. 5 or 6 French soldiers lay dead in the vicinity of our retreat.
Within just a few days, the Germans have taken possession of Douai. And very soon, the victors are laying down their laws. They set up a commandanture in the town hall. The German army now runs the town, with the help of local councillors who do their bidding.
I can't believe it. The town fell in one day. It's incredible. Douai was occupied by thousands and thousands of Germans. Outside our hiding place, we didn't feel safe.
Like Achille, many of the inhabitants of Douai find themselves trapped by the speed of the attack. They're all prisoners in their own town, subject to the will of the victors. In the streets, most of the people who are left are elderly, children, many women. But there are also men of fighting age. The Germans are wary of them.
4 French soldiers were discovered by a search party, who dragged them out onto the pavement. There, they were forced to kneel down and made to shout, "Long live Germany, down with France."
In October 1914, northeastern France falls to the Germans. 10 départements are invaded. 2 million French find themselves prisoners behind an impassable front line. Each side hopes to defeat the other by means of a rapid maneuver, but in the invaded zones, this optimism is far from being shared. Douai becomes a garrison town. It has 6 barracks and houses up to 10,000 German soldiers, 12 kilometers from the front. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Commander-in-Chief of the German Armed Forces, visits the town on the 1st of November, proud of his new conquests.
Frankly, inundated as we were by German troops, we couldn't think of returning to our respective homes, and our hearts were in our boots. Our refuge of October 1914. Imagine an area of around 10 square meters, covered by a sloping tiled roof with only a very small opening to the outside world. Suffice to say, we were pretty much in the dark. Very discreet apartments with rooftop views, to rent, reasonable prices, games room, dormitory, refectory, reading room. Viewable to everyone. But the Boche. From outside, we can hear nothing but the incessant passing of troops, singing The Watch on the Rhine, Germany Above All, and the Austrian national anthem at the tops of their voices, along with religious songs. My wife, who's been living with her parents since the 1st of October, tells me that uninhabited houses are being pillaged on all sides. I take the serious decision to return to my home. At dusk, my father comes to get me. We arrive at my house in Rue Jean de Boulogne without encountering a single German. Get home safely, son. Thank you. Be careful, Papa. I'm able to enjoy the comforts of home.
In Douai, the barracks aren't big enough to house all the soldiers. The Germans also invite themselves into people's homes, another way of keeping an eye on the French. Achille and his wife are not spared.
Two helmeted soldiers made their entrance.
Meine Herren, setzen Sie sich bitte.
Danke.
As I know a little German, I was able to converse with them.
Wasser?
Ja.
The first, Erich, was only 19. The second, Franz, 23. They told me that they'd come from Ypres, where the French had broken through. They added that they were all totally exhausted.
Between enemies, forced to live together under the same roof, a strange kind of familiarity ends up developing.
In the evening, Franz marched around in front of us in Prussian style. He put so much enthusiasm into it that he broke a bottle of schnapps stuffed in his belt. The liquid spilled out and there was general laughter. Having emptied their pockets, they gave me some uniform buttons, pfennigs, German newspapers and so on.
Dankeschön, Franz.
Bitteschön.
Thanks to these newspapers given to him by the Germans, Achille is able to glean valuable information, which has become rare. Because, like him, many people in the north and east are cut off from the outside world. Unlike free France, which is weighed down with millions of letters written by families and soldiers, in the occupied zone, the postal services have fallen into the hands of the Germans, depriving the inhabitants of any news. Achille and his fellow postmen find themselves out of work. And in these towns, deprived of mail and newspapers, rumours are rife.
News is spreading around town that the Japanese are willing to send 500,000 men to France, with free postage and packing. All they want in return for this service is French Indochina. I may be overusing the expressions "they say," "we hear," and "it seems," but if I confine myself to news that I'm certain is authentic, well, frankly, I might as well stop writing my memoirs.
The simple fact of writing is a reprehensible act of resistance in the eyes of the Germans. If they discover his diary and the notes he's taking every day, Achille risks a minimum of several years in prison, or worse, the death penalty for espionage. Douai changes. The town becomes Germanized. In the invaded département, signs in German spring up on every street corner. The official time is set to that of Berlin. The Kaiser's portrait hangs in all the schools and town halls. The church bells only ring to celebrate the victories and services of the new masters of the land.
The German soldiers are being given a multitude of religious leaflets in which the words "Gott mit uns," God is with us, abound. In this way, it's instilled into our enemies that entrusted with a heaven-sent mission, they're regenerating humanity. Those who die in battle are martyrs to the faith.
To keep up the morale of their troops, while the population is deprived of any form of entertainment, the Germans open casinos, have fun, and play sports. But the ordinary soldiers only have a few days' leave to enjoy them.
When it came for them to leave, they were very emotional.
Achille.
One of them felt moved to tell me, "I've never had the slightest animosity towards you. I hope that your brother comes back safe and sound from the war, and that your health improves."
Erich.
Thank you.
They say that after the war, if they make it, they'll write to me to let me know that they've got back to their homeland. Two new Germans, big fellows. They don't understand a word of French. We stare stonily at one another. They're suspicious and sly as can be. I hate these filthy Bosch. They're true Prussians, through and through. We'll have to be on our guard. Since the 10th of December, I've seen more than 50 soldiers parade through my house. How painful it is to see your home being trampled upon by the enemy. I'm starting to think that you can catch rabies without being either bitten or wounded. The garrison commander thinks he's seeing far too many men in the streets of Douai. Watch out for a dragnet. Great emotion in town. The Germans are taking a census of all males born between 1861 and 1900.
On the 15th of February 1915, on the orders of the authorities, the people of Douai assemble for a roll call. There are 1,700 men present, and one absent. Our postal clerk. By refusing to participate in the roll call, Achille is taking a risky decision. Now officially absent from Douai, he becomes an outlaw in his town and in his own home.
I didn't declare myself, because I don't recognize the Germans as having the slightest right over me. It might have been around 9 p.m. Pricking up my ears, I heard jabbering in Bosch language.
Ja, genau. Schon.
Being resistant to the German laws, I started thinking, they've got you, old chap. They've come to search your house.
Machen Sie auf! Deutsche Soldaten.
As for me, I'm going to try and get to my hiding place. So there I was, climbing the stairs 4 at a time, feeling very anxious indeed.
Guten Abend, Madame. Guten Abend. Wir sind Soldaten des 15. Landsturmregiments.
I imagined that some charitable soul had denounced me and that they were coming to get me. Escape was impossible. I resolved not to show my face.
Guten Tag. Guten Tag.
Danke, Gefreiter.
Dankeschön.
There are constant comings and goings in the house, corporals and soldiers. I spend the day in bed. My wife, fearing that I'll starve, has left me some tinned food, some cocoa and some biscuits.
Hast du eine Ahnung, wann wir an die Front müssen? Nicht wirklich. Der Kaporal meinte, dass wir in 2 Tagen mehr erfahren werden.
Still in bed.
Man wird sehen.
What a ridiculous idea, not showing my face. My wife can barely bring me any dinner.
Bei den Franzosen
The Germans don't go out much.
ein kleines Bier trinken, das lasse ich mir nicht.
Still lying in bed. Yielding to the urging of my wife, who's quaking at the thought that I might get caught, I think I'll probably go to my parents' house, which is in Rue Victor Hugo. At the end of the afternoon, I'm on my way to my new home. Come on, quickly.
Achille's excursion will only take 10 minutes, but it's dangerous. If they're stopped, he and his father could be interned in Germany. Fortunately, Achille makes it safely to his new hiding place, his parents' house, where his youngest sister also lives.
Lucette!
The house is in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood. Achille occupies a makeshift bedroom under the eaves. Only his hiding place is about to be plunged into the heart of the German system. Achille draws a plan. The Bourgins' house is a few meters from the École des Mines, which has been turned into a hospital for wounded Germans. The surrounding houses are all occupied by soldiers. But faced with this constant threat, Achille has a major asset: his father.
Are you ready?
Jean is an amateur photographer, well known throughout the region. During these first few months of the war, he becomes a reporter.
That's perfect.
His photographs are scattered throughout Achille's notebooks. As the pages turn, we can see that he knew how to make friends of the enemy, how to make contacts. He even photographs the German cemetery in Douai. His charisma and his ability to talk to the enemy certainly enable him to protect his son. All the more so, since some of the people of Douai are beginning to criticize the attitude of men who, like Achille, are hiding in the town.
Some people are quick to say that it's shameful to hide. Personally, I think I'm doing my duty better by refusing to attend the German roll calls.
How many men are hiding in the occupied territories? It's impossible to know exactly. But in the shadow of these houses, there are certainly a few soldiers and civilians who are determined, like Achille, not to serve the enemy.
I'm French, and I do not wish to obey the Germans' orders in any way.
Resistance takes different forms. A shopkeeper will close his shop on Sundays so as not to serve the Germans on their day off. In Lille, textile workers refuse to make sandbags destined for the German trenches. Everywhere, men and women spy on the enemy and give information to the Allies at the risk of their lives. On the battlefield, the front is bogged down. Everyone is now camped in the trenches. This is intolerable to the French General Staff, who step up attacks. 5 offensives in 1915, 360,000 dead, without much result. And still no news of Albert, Achille's brother. In the occupied département, snatches of information can be found in the Gazette des Ardennes. This newspaper, controlled by the Germans, occasionally prints a list of French prisoners who are still alive, or dead soldiers. Added to the agonizing lack of news is the increasingly oppressive perception of the horrors of the war, spread by the Germans themselves.
A German soldier who spoke our language perfectly said the following to my father. I've just come back from the front, where I took part in several battles. The sight there is unimaginable. He added, the French artillery is decimating us. When the shells start to fall, the soldiers cry out, mercy, mother, father. When the French lose 2 men, we lose 20 to 25. Trenches are sometimes filled with corpses, which are buried just 50 centimeters beneath the ground. When the hot weather comes, the decomposed bodies are going to spread epidemics.
This is the macabre reality of the front. In Douai, it's hard to escape the dramatic consequences of the war. Many of the public buildings are turned into makeshift hospitals. Both German soldiers and Allied prisoners are treated there.
There have never been so many wounded soldiers in the town. Many are dying from lack of treatment. The hospital in the École des Mines is a hive of activity. They're cutting arms and legs off there every day. War is a sad thing. It can never be said enough. So many poor souls cut down in the prime of life before they've barely glimpsed the future. Weep, unfortunate mothers, who conceived only to provide fodder for the steel of bayonets.
The war is also being fought at sea. The Allies impose a naval blockade. Deprived of Russian and American wheat, the German people are starving, sacrificed in the name of the war effort. For Germany, the occupied territories have to provide for its needs at all costs.
The Germans are quietly harvesting the fields around Douai. A poster in the town informs us that they'll be taking 4/5 of the crop. The remaining 1/5 will be graciously left to us for our consumption. Thank you, Mr. Bosch. Several farmers arrived in Douai this afternoon. Of the 62 horses requisitioned by the Germans in their villages, the poor people have nothing left but their eyes to cry with. One of them said that 13 of his 14 cows had been taken, and of his 8 horses, only 1 remains, and that one is sick. A voluntary prisoner, I keep myself as busy as possible and take an interest in things I wouldn't have bothered about in normal times. I currently have a small chicken to keep me company. I've become a farmyard animal trainer. What won't I have done by the end of the occupation?
That summer, the French and Germans clash in Lorette, 30 kilometers from Douai. 188,000 soldiers from both sides will die trying to secure this small strategic hill.
Our enemies are beginning to show signs of weakening. The 11th German Infantry Regiment lost 2,100 men in 8 hours. 14 officers were killed. The Germans are dismayed. For my part, I'm far from being in good order with the German authorities, and the longer things drag on, the more likely I am to become acquainted with the iron fist of the Boche. I've been a voluntary prisoner since the 1st of October 1914. My morale is still excellent, but my physical condition has left much to be desired for the last 8 days. One can't deprive oneself of one's freedom without consequences. But my refusal to obey the Boche is worth a few hardships.
Aufmachen! Ist da jemand? Deutsche Soldaten! Aufmachen!
This is no time to be caught napping. I slide under the bed, and from my vantage point, I hear knocking.
Bonjour, messieurs.
Inspection.
Je vous en prie, entrez.
They came at 10:30 in the morning. They decided to visit the cellar. Seeing a table upon which were placed various bottles containing chemical baths, a bowl, a lantern, etc., they talked about photography. Coming back up from the cellar, my father suggested they visit the bedrooms and the attic.
Volontiers?
Nein.
Très bien.
But deciding that there were too many stairs, they left. I was relieved. When you think that in some houses, they go so far as to open parasols and umbrellas, overturn cupboards and so on. The 11th month of occupation. It's like a bad dream. To think that we assumed, to begin with, that the war would last no more than 4 or 5 months. Today, I used a ploy in order to have lunch with my parents, despite the Boche being there. I put on my best clothes, thus having the appearance of a stranger in the house. Then, I slipped into the dining room.
Oui.
Monsieur Bourgin, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Gentlemen, may I present Monsieur Douai, a friend, said my father. They treated me like a guest.
Tenez.
The rumbling of the cannons hasn't stopped for a second, to such an extent that the noise seems to belong to the natural world around us.
A few kilometers from Douai, the Third Battle of Artois is raging. With the help of the British Army, based in the north of France, Marshal Joffre wants to break the German lines.
This din has been going on for 13 days, but today was the crowning moment. At around 2:15 in the afternoon, a squadron of planes flew over Douai. They headed towards the station, spreading terror as they went. 15 bombs were dropped.
The Battle of Artois ends in another failure. The Germans retreat by just 2 kilometers, while the Allies suffer heavy losses.
Today is the anniversary of the capture of the town. What misery we've endured so far, and it's not over yet. The poor invaded people look like death warmed up. It seems that on the other side of the front, the stoicism of those under occupation is being praised. We have to be stoic and smoulder in silence, because what can we say or do? We're literally overwhelmed by Boche soldiers.
The enemy doesn't hesitate to monopolize food supplies. The starving population subsists on a drip feed of international aid from Spain, Holland, and the United States. But the deliveries are irregular and insufficient. Everyone is losing weight, weakening, and dying prematurely.
I am, and I will remain, set against the German law. And yet, God knows what I've had to endure so far in order to satisfy my patriotic stubbornness. The threat of being heavily fined, of being imprisoned, or shot. Nothing will deter me. My conscience is clear. Death can come. I do not fear it. The temperature has dropped considerably. The roofs are covered in white frost. I sincerely pity my compatriots in the trenches.
General von Falkenhayn dreams of a resounding victory. His target, Verdun. On the 21st of February, the battle begins in a hail of iron and steel. 2 million shells are fired in 2 days. 1 explosion every 3 seconds. the French troops are massacred. Fort Douai falls to the Germans. In Douai, as for every victory, the German troops parade through the town, their cannons decorated with flowers.
The bad news of these last few days has made me extremely nervous. I've barely slept or eaten for the last 3 days.
Verdun has a lasting effect on French morale. 7 out of 10 soldiers are sent to fight there. The battle brings 2,300,000 combatants together in one place.
The population hasn't yet recovered from the anxiety caused by the German advance in the Verdun sector. The last optimists have gone over to the side of the pessimists. My unwavering confidence has been severely shaken. Many people are killing their dogs to avoid paying the German tax. Cats are to be kept indoors. This isn't a joke, but the text of posters that have just been put up around the town. People who want to dispose of their doggies will have to take them to the Kommandantur. It's highly likely that the Germans will now start producing canned dog.
In Verdun, the immense battle gets bogged down and drags on. On average, 1,000 men die every day, both German and French.
When, oh when, will we be able to throw ourselves into the arms of our liberators? For the last 18 months, they've been sugaring the pill by telling us it'll happen next month. If this carries on, we'll all be dead before we see the first French army caps. The German soldiers that we see in town look miserable. Their faces are pasty. They've had enough. The same officer who announced a few days ago that 500,000 Germans would be marching on Verdun is now down in the dumps. He just told his landlady that war is such misery and that he's had so much work to do and is so badly fed that he's decided to hang himself. Great emotion caused by some good news this morning. My brother, a soldier in the 3rd Engineers, of whom we've had no news since September 1914, finally managed to give us a sign of life through the intermediary of a prisoner we didn't know. This postcard was able to get through. It's scandalous to see the crowds flocking to the park in Porte de Valenciennes on Sundays and public holidays, while the Bosch military band plays on the bandstand. It's a distressing fact that the Bosch are becoming increasingly involved in public life. Some people invite them to gatherings, such as communions and family parties. It's often thanks to them that feasts can include a rare morsel of pork or some drinkable beer. Basic foodstuffs are either unaffordable or totally lacking. A quarter of beef costs a fortune. People are fighting in the markets to get their hands on pieces of tripe. Why not admit it? We're literally starving. People are melting away like butter in a frying pan. I can hardly get any thinner, having never been more than skin and bone. Nevertheless, I'm noticing a gradual weakening of all my faculties. I'm unsteady on my feet, and my whole being is gripped with perpetual weariness. My wife hasn't been able to get used to the debilitating diet imposed upon us, and is now suffering from enteritis, which is only getting worse. As for my little girl, she's struggling to get over a bout of measles, which she contracted a month ago. Every family's in the same boat. Infant mortality is very high. It's enough to make you shudder.
Faced with a weakened, starving population, the Germans decide to get rid of those they deem to be useless. The destitute, women, the sick, children, and the elderly. Trains are chartered for them, bound for unoccupied France. In total, 500,000 people are evacuated. The journey to get around the front line is long. Through Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, and finally back to France. Welcomed at first, the refugees are gradually accused of failing to integrate, of being lazy. Worse, they're saddled with a defamatory nickname.
On the other side of the front, our compatriots commonly refer to us as the Northern Boche. When I heard this, I was absolutely flabbergasted. Since the 14th of October 1914, there's no suffering we haven't endured. Do we have to be insulted into the bargain? In what way are we to blame? It's a very sad 14th of July in an occupied country. Not a single French flag in the windows. Throughout the day, thousands of people went to the cemetery, as though on a pilgrimage. It's the only demonstration permitted to our poor, invaded people. My wife went to lay a tricolor bouquet on the grave of a French soldier whose identity has not been established. For 2 years, the mother country has abandoned us. At times, we wonder anxiously if she still thinks of us.
Schneller!
The Germans are searching all over town for people who still don't have identity cards. The German military police are in the process of investigating a batch of 42, that's 42 denunciations. It's sad to see French citizens denouncing the patriotic actions of their own people to the enemy. It seems that even the Germans are disgusted by it. The lure of a reward has a lot to do with it. But malice is no stranger to it either. As far as I'm concerned, it's the fear of denunciation that stops me from setting foot outside. I'm not ready to be caught yet.
1916 marks a turning point in the occupied zone. After 2 years of war, Germany has a serious shortage of manpower. But the enemy needs workers to dig trenches, cut wood, and maintain the roads. So, in violation of the Hague Convention, which stipulates that no civilian can be made to work against their own homeland, the Germans round up men over the age of 16. Those who rebel are severely punished. Whether they volunteer or not, these workers have to wear a red armband.
The regime of terror is in full swing. The German authorities are taking the men and women they need for war work. What's intolerable is that most of them are being used, in the area close to the front, for military tasks directed against their own people. The German authorities have demanded 400 women who will be employed in the cartridge factory. For the last few days, as soon as night spreads its veil, I've been venturing into the courtyard, and there I pick up a foil and fence against a wall, until tiredness brings me to my knees. I also walk about on all fours sometimes, having read somewhere that this is an excellent sport. I don't do any other more complicated movements, which would be sure to attract the neighbours' attention. As silent as a shadow, I then go back inside the house. "17th of December, 1916, 609th day of occupation. I turned 35 today.
Merci, ma chérie.
But since war years are twice as long as normal, it'd be more logical to say that I'm 37.
Achille's birthday coincides, within a day, to the end of the Battle of Verdun. Fort Douai is nothing but ruins. In 1 year, 300,000 French and Germans have died within this apocalyptic setting. Once more, the front line hasn't moved, but France has stood its ground.
We emerged from our torpor to celebrate the latest success at Verdun. I was so moved that I had to hold myself back from crying like a baby. The head of the German Kommandantur, who lives opposite our house, would have been greatly edified if he'd heard us. This morning, when I woke up, I noticed that the snow had been up to its old tricks during the night. The ground is covered by a thick carpet of white flakes. All the more reason to silence the cannons. In the neighbourhood, the Boche are spending their leisure time shooting birds.
Achille has just heard some unexpected news. There's an escape route in Douai.
A guide, who you have to pay, takes you through the fields to the Dutch border. When the moment is right, you cross the electric fence. Once this bad patch has been navigated, a boat takes you to England, and from England, you return to France. This eventful journey takes 3 weeks. It's not the ideal way to escape. I will definitely not be making the journey. You need legs to walk, and I no longer have any. I'll wait for a better opportunity.
A few days later, the leaders of the escape network are arrested in Douai.
My pen is trembling as I write this, because the thought that we've been under the thumb of the Boche for 900 days now is enough to drive me mad. I've become extremely ill-tempered. I've given up making the slightest plan. What's the point? Our situation has become intolerable. Are they aware of this in non-invaded France?
On the Western Front, exhausted and decimated, the Germans are marking time. After having lost 1 million men in Verdun and the Somme, General Hindenburg decides to make a strategic withdrawal behind a line that's easier to defend. As it retreats, the German army destroys everything in its path, forcibly displacing 150,000 civilians.
A large part of the population is terrified. They're mostly afraid of having to evacuate the town. Some people are burying their gold, others are walling up their cellars. Everyone is slowly dwindling and dying. I've found a hiding place in which I've gathered together some trinkets and writings that are important to me. I can't think of taking my memoirs with me if I'm going to sample the pleasures of captivity in Germany. Short of a miracle, I've no idea how I'd cope. This morning, I learnt to my amazement that numerous teams of soldiers are taking everything made of metal from people's homes. Pendulums, candelabras, tubes, zinc baths, busts. The silverware is no exception. It's organised pillage. The truth is simple. The Germans need bronze for their shells.
The Germans continue their search for metal, even in places of worship. Church bells are taken down and smashed to be melted down into cannons and shells. It's one requisition too many, and the whole population is outraged. The mayor of Douai appeals to the German commander.
Mothers and wives are being asked to declare and deliver objects that will be turned into weapons of war that may harm their sons and husbands. In the name of humanity, at its most sacred, they protest most strenuously against this measure.
In response, the occupying force imposes fines, prison sentences, and stricter curfews.
It seems that things aren't going particularly smoothly in France. Apparently, the regiment in Le Havre mutinied at the beginning of the month. In June, 4 other regiments are said to have done the same.
That summer, the repeated deadly offensives lead to the demoralization of the French troops. Patriotic, decorated veterans now refuse to die for nothing. They demand more leave, more food. 49 of them are shot. The rebellion also affects the Germans.
People in town report seeing soldiers gathered for imminent departure for the firing line, throwing their bags and rifles down on the ground. In Douai alone, 24 soldiers who refused to go to the front are awaiting trial by court-martial.
Achille's only hope, the United States' entrance into the war, is soon swept away by an accumulation of bad news. On the 24th of October, the Italians, who had joined the Allies in 1915, suffer a heavy defeat in the mountains near Venice. They lose half of their army. At the same time, the Bolshevik Revolution triumphs in Russia. Lenin takes power.
The German soldiers are delighted. The Italians are kaput. The Russians want peace. The war will soon be over. We'll be home for Christmas. The civilian population is dismayed. The town is in turmoil. The worst thing is that I think they're going to force my father to leave Douai. It's the beginning of a total evacuation.
The inhabitants of Douai are summoned district by district by the German authorities.
My father, my mother, my sister, and my little girl have to go to the commandantur. No good will come of this. More than ever, the sword of Damocles is poised, ready to fall on our heads. The first batch of residents, summoned this morning, were informed verbally and as one that they'll be evacuated immediately to Belgium. My father came back dismayed. If only he'd been allowed to go to France. At their age, to be chased out of their home like this. It's hard to accept.
The Bourgins will soon have to leave Douai and abandon their house. Achille, without valid papers, risks being discovered. Prison, forced labour, or even worse, the death penalty, loom over him once again.
Try as I might to keep my chin up. I'm pretty despondent. Who wouldn't be? To have held out for 41 months, then be on the verge of being caught. It's enough to drive you mad. Thoughts of suicide are running through my head.
On the 3rd of March 1918, Germany and Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. It's the end of hostilities on the Eastern Front. In secret, the Germans prepare a vast offensive. They repatriate troops from Russia and amass more than 3 million men in the West. On the 21st of March 1918, General Ludendorff launches what is known as the Kaiser's Battle, near Cambrai and Saint-Quentin. Surprised, the British retreat. The front line is pushed back 50 kilometers.
In town, optimism has gone out of circulation. People meeting each other are saying, "We're done for. We're going to become German." How guilty our government has been.
However, there's a glimmer of hope. The United States. With them in July 1918, the war turns. At last, the Germans retreat. But some départements, still in enemy hands, are under even more constant attack from the Allies.
They say it's finally time for the big offensive, said my father.
Peut-être.
Maybe, I replied. But I've heard that a dozen times before. Alas. We were about to quietly sit down to dinner when an all too familiar whistling sound put us on alert. In the space of 20 minutes, we had to go down to the cellar 4 times. These English spare nothing. It's always the little people who suffer. I was far from thinking that my wife, who's living in the Rue Jean de Boulogne, would also have been in such grave danger. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. My frightened little girl told me all about it. It's mostly the whistling of the bombs that terrifies her. She has tears in her eyes just talking about it. It's no exaggeration to say that the wings of death just brushed every member of our family.
That summer, the Allied pilots dropped bombs on Douai almost every day. In his notebooks, Achille records the impact points around him and lists the civilian casualties. 39 deaths in 2 months.
The 2nd of September. Around 2 p.m, the Boche posted evacuation orders for the civilian population around town.
The Allies have just begun the final assault. The Germans evacuate all the towns near the front line. It's the final blow for the local population. In Douai, 14,000 people are forced to leave their homes.
This news has left me in turmoil. What will become of me? I take my false identity card, with the signature and stamp copied from a genuine one. There's nothing missing. The evacuation begins. We leave around 10 p.m. Shells are falling all around us. Columns of evacuees pass by. It's heartbreaking. The lucky ones have handcarts. Others have nothing but a suitcase or a bundle on their backs. I see a woman being dragged along in a wheelbarrow by her husband. The moving sea of people is flanked by Uhlans. Is this really the 20th century? I can't believe it.
The Bourgins leave Douai and pass through several villages before arriving in Hanon. There, for the first time in 4 years, the family splits up.
My parents set off around 3 p.m. for Patriot in Belgium. The condition of my sister, who is unwell, requires them to retreat further. We know nothing about the war. Loud bangs from time to time remind us that we're still in the danger zone. My parents are safe in Patriot. Towards 10:30, 2 Boche, probably the last, walk through the village, their guns on their backs. At last, at midday, I see 4 English soldiers, yes, 4, hugging the walls on the other side of the street. The person who's giving us lodgings plays the Marseillaise and the British national anthem on the piano. Delighted to be free at last, I go out into the village. At midday, we enter Douai. There's not a civilian in the street. Doors are standing open everywhere, windows broken. Our house is still standing, but the inside is in a pitiful state. Most of the furniture has gone. My little museum, of which I was so proud, has been wrecked. My shell collection has gone. Everything's been chopped up, broken, smashed to bits. Excrement in every room. We are the only inhabitants in the street, which has 80 houses. I visit my parents' house. As pillaging goes, it's a thorough job. My brother is still alive. and has marked his passage by writing on all the mirrors in the house, "My poor parents, how you have suffered. Albert, 26th of October, 1918. I hear that one of my colleagues has come back and is working to restore some semblance of a postal service. We've set ourselves up in the police commissioner's office. Monsieur Bavet informs me that we're waiting for a delivery of stamps from Paris. You couldn't do your duty during the war, but you can make up for it now. Last night, we were woken by a chorus of car horns. Something told me that this racket was prompted by good news, probably the cessation of hostilities. The armistice has been signed. This time, the Colossus has been brought very low. The Kaiser's on the run. My pen can rest.
Bourgin, venez.
This morning, my colleague Bavet came up to me, looking concerned.
Écoutez, je suis vraiment...
Bourgin, he said to me,
Je viens d'apprendre pour votre mère et votre
I
sœur.
have some bad news.
Vous avez été...
Your mother and your sister were killed by one of the few shells that fell on Perouet on the 3rd of November 1918.
Concernant votre père,
As for your father, who was very badly wounded, the Germans have sent him to the rear. Be strong.
Bourgin,
My grief is immense. I'm literally stunned. Devastated.
Achille,
As if we hadn't suffered enough during the war.
tout va bien?
When I get home, I cry my eyes out. My memoirs are finished. Nothing interests me anymore. Oh yes, we won. But at what price? I used to believe in something. Now I don't believe in anything.
All sides combined, the war has caused the deaths of 20 million people, civilians and soldiers alike. In France, it's time to return home, with a mixture of joy and apprehension. Achille and his family decide to go and live in Versailles. Achille spends 2 years going through his notes and putting them in order, adding newspaper articles, drawings, and photographs. An immense job. However, his suffering and deprivation count for little compared to the stories told by the poilus, the French soldiers. While the French celebrate their heroes, Achille and the hundreds of thousands of men and women in the occupied département are already being forgotten. He will say little about the war to his children and grandchildren, and will never show them his notebooks.
I have no regrets. I did what I thought was my duty.
A century later, amongst a pile of worthless items donated to a charity shop, his memoirs will be miraculously found, giving new life to the extraordinary story of this voluntary prisoner, hidden for nearly 4 years beneath the noses of the Germans.